Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Extreme Improv podcast. My name is David Pustansky, and I'm joined today by two improvisers. We have Jaymie and Sam from LA in the United States of America. How are you doing, guys?
Great.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, this is the Extreme Improv podcast, and we're going to talk about all kinds of manner of things, improv and otherwise. So, just to begin with, let's start with some improv. Will you tell us a little bit about where you do improv, who you do improv with, and so on and so forth?
Sure. Actually, we just had a show last night at Acme Theater in North Hollywood. And they are kind of our home theater right now where we perform most of our shows. But there's also shows we perform at the Clubhouse, which is a small indie venue here in LA. And we just bounce around. We play wherever people will have us.
Yeah. So fun thing about the LA community is there are a lot of small theaters and small shows. And, there are a lot of bigger theaters. So there are a lot of teams out there trying to do their own thing.
So are you part of a team or are you a double act? How does it work?
Yeah, we are a Twoprov, two-person improv team. So you have the entire team here on the podcast with you today, which is very special.
That's amazing. I don't think we've had the entire team of any team on a podcast before like this.
Well, how lucky for us.
What happens if one of you is sick?
Or one of us just decides to stand off the stage for a while. Turns into a one-person show.
Oh, I feel like there's a little bit of something behind that comment. Has that happened?
Oh, it happens almost every show. Thank God Sam is a very strong monologist because I've been known to leave stages, to go outside, to go back into the green room,
sit in the audience,
sit in the audience for a few minutes.
Hang on, can I just interrupt? Monologist? That's a word that's brand new to me. What's a monologist?
Go ahead, Sam.
It's a person who can deliver a monologue.
Yeah,
or a monology.
Okay, so a person that delivers a monologue is known as a monologist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
You probably
important
think
to
this is a bit
distinguish
weird, but
soliloquy.
this is a brand new word to me, so I've discovered that. That's my word of the day. A monologist.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you were saying when I interrupted for that segue onto the monology.
Oh no, it's just a lot of fun as a Twoprov team to be able to have variety in your show, and it's something that we really try to push ourselves to find is how can we vary what's going on stage and what the dynamics are on stage. And I think one of the easiest ways to do it, and one that I should probably pay attention to more, is to do less and to step back for a minute and let someone else have the spotlight.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, will you tell us a little bit about what does one of your shows look like? What's the format? How does it work in Twoprov?
Jesus Christ. It's so funny. We were just talking about it before we started recording, and we're like, we don't have a form. There's no real pattern that we adhere to. It's really, each show is completely different from one to the next. So it's really hard to advertise or sell our
sound
this is our
just seems
form.
to have roboted out on me. It's happened occasionally, but it might be a connection. So you were just saying, if you could repeat that.
Yeah, sure. So each show of ours is very, very different. So it makes it hard to market a show or advertise a show because one show to the next will not look the same. We've done two-person mono scenes for 20 minutes, and then we've done very commedia dell'arte style shows, and we do clown bits in between, and sometimes we go out to the audience, and sometimes we stay in the audience, and it's very fun, but also kind of scary at times because you never know what you're going to get. Not even we do.
Yeah, we're taking sort of inspiration from the deconstruction form, where it's not the structure of the form itself so much as a philosophy that kind of guides it. And we talk about a lot of different sort of philosophies that might guide us, but we like to involve improvisation with clowning, and we also like to have some sort of theatricality to it. Because I think a lot of times improv can get very sketch-focused or very genre-focused, and there is more than that on the stage available.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dig into that a little bit. So first thing I picked up there is you say it can be very difficult to market your show. How do you overcome that? What different things have you picked up that you can do to explain this is going to be something perhaps different every time?
I mean, it's a tough I think it's tough in general in Los Angeles, which is a really saturated improvisation market, to get people to come to shows. One thing we've done is just stand on the street outside the theater and just, hey, do you like comedy? And really try to focus it towards someone having a good experience with comedy, more than saying, oh, we're doing this really interesting form that's very sophisticated and we've studied a lot. Just sort of approaching people and interacting with them that way, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah, that's a hands-on approach. Yep, sorry, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, in a sense, we market our shows by not actually marketing our shows.
That sounds very deep.
Meaning, we'll just say, hey, do you like comedy versus, hey, do you like a form where people don't know what's going on and it's totally chaotic? And, sometimes there's this, because if we actually marketed our shows as our shows exist, it's so, what's the word?
Ephemeral.
Intangible. It's so inconsistent that it's hard to market with any kind of, hey, we're this on this date at this time, this is what you can expect. Because you can't really expect anything, which I think is a lot of fun, but it does make marketing a challenge.
Yeah, and I also should make clear that we're not selling out the theater every week. We do play to small audiences a lot of the time, and I think that is something that should be embraced. And how can you make a show for a small audience really fun for that small audience?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna pitch an idea to you guys of like an idea from what I've heard. So, to me, this almost sounds like if you go to like a Comic-Con or like from a website and you can get like a mystery box. So that's, it's a mystery box of what you're going to get. There's going to be lots of goodies inside of different nuggets of stuff. And that almost sounds like the way that I would sum up what, as you've described to me, it sounds almost like.
Yeah, hopefully this podcast can work as marketing. Hello, Los Angeles. You can see Folly the first and third Fridays of every month at 8 p.m. and the first Saturday at 10 p.m. Come on down.
That was good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
No, that works. Get the plugs in wherever you can, by all means. Okay, let's talk a little bit. You said about clowning and commedia dell'arte. Do you have particular? You said about perhaps you've got a background in that.
Yeah, we, not super extensive, but we took an intensive this past summer together with David Bridell, who's a dean at USC here in Los Angeles. And it was a great workshop that exposed us to the character types and the mask work, but also certain ideas of how to do patterns of blocking on stage and how to sort of give an aside to the audience that reveals a character want or a character plan or a trick, and then sort of having that dialogue between the character and the audience, but also letting both sort of improvisers know what's going on as well. So there were a lot of tricks I think we pulled out of Commedia.
Okay, and are there any particular of the archetype characters from Commedia that you lean towards as favourites or ones you like to play?
Yeah, I think I naturally go to like a Capitano, which is certainly fun as like a boastful, angry person. And what's really fun about the archetypes is you get emotion baked in there. So if I call Jaymie Arlecchino and he calls me Capitano, like we automatically know that I'm probably going to get mad at something and then be really scared when I'm threatened. And he like maybe is going to find some food he really wants, or just sort of having this kind of like fun, joyful energy to him. I don't think we bring out we naturally tend towards Dottore. And I think that just like comes out without ever having to label ourselves as that. So I think part of it is knowing like what types you kind of play naturally and lean into.
Yeah, but what's a really interesting concept from this is because they have set character types in Commedia dell'arte. Like you said, if you were just to say El Capitano, Pantalone, so on and so forth, instantly you then have somewhere to go. You know what kind of tricks and tips would work with the different characters, and you kind of set yourself up for, even though you don't know where the story is going to go, you know how the characters are going to respond to things, so you can play into that.
Yeah, I think with naming in general, we've been really pushing into that direction where the names are more symbolic and representational than just another John or Catherine or something. Like a character named General Kill, you know that there's something else going on there, and it's sort of a darker persona. And I think there's a lot of fun to have there with exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you guys been doing this together?
We actually just had our 1-year anniversary on November 17th. Happy anniversary, Sam.
Happy anniversary, Jaymie.
Happy anniversary, guys.
Thank you.
So how did you come together to be doing Twoprov?
Yeah, so we were in a workshop with Jason Schatz, who's a IO guy here in LA, and I just kind of liked Sam's energy. He seemed very intelligent and kind of open to exploring some of the less played side of improv, because there's certainly, I think, at least in Los Angeles, a tone of what improv is expected to be, and I personally am interested in seeing where improv can go and what improv can be as opposed to what's expected to be. And I think I like Sam because I could tell he was kind of intellectual about how he's approaching the art form. So he was open to the exploration of, hey, let's have our show be a PhD thesis on improv and comedy rather than just, two characters in a bar having a funny conversation. It's like, what can we do with the form? How can we break it? How can we reform the rules? How can we expose the rules for being hollow, as opposed to these gospel as they're taught in training centers?
Yeah. And do you think your audiences are aware of this, pick up on this, or is this something more just that you're experimenting with it, and then audiences through exposure to it and perhaps exposure to other things will just feel that they've seen something different?
Yeah, I think we just had this conversation a couple weeks ago because we had a show in front of an audience that I don't think had ever seen us perform before. And that was the kind of question, is that how are we received by an audience? I don't know if an audience knows how to watch our show, or if we have to just keep performing in this style that we're trying to develop, and then maybe a following will occur and maybe it won't. Maybe audiences in Los Angeles will hate us. And that'll also be interesting. It's mostly, I think our improv is very experimental in the sense that we don't know where we're going. We don't know if an audience will love or hate it. People seem to like it because we keep getting asked to do shows, which is very flattering. But it's still very much a work in progress.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we talk about with regards to the second that we step on stage, the show has started. So even with our introduction, even with the suggestion we're trying to set a tone that this isn't just like the other show that's going to be in that half hour with us, or like other shows you've kind of seen. And I think that's really important. And I think part of the clowning element comes in here too, because when you're engaging with the audience and actually talking about what's actually going on stage, as opposed to just like miming a sandwich that they kind of believe, there becomes something for an audience that hasn't seen a lot of improv where they're like, oh, they're really having an argument right now as themselves, or they're really talking about their trust issues as themselves, not just in sort of this fake world. And so I think that the here and now is something that we're really working on and focusing our energies on, because everyone's accessible to those sorts of things.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, you said you had a show last night. Tell us a little bit about what happened. What was the did you have a get from the audience?
Yeah, there was a sketch show that was on in the hour before us, and they left their set list up, and they had 13 things numbered on there. And so as Jaymie started pulling out a bunch of set decoration from behind stage, like a podium and sort of a table in the corner, I asked the audience for a number between 1 and 13. And so our suggestion was Book of John 3, parentheses, video. And then we kind of went off from there.
Cool. And how long was the set?
It was about 25 minutes or so.
Yeah. And we had like a variety of, like, kind of, we've been talking about opening with a monologue because the podium was there, and kind of using the podium and directly addressing the audience, along with some more scenic sections as well, and even sort of maybe a talk show section at the end where, oh, you mentioned this character, now this character can kind of come out. So the fun of the free form is that we can have kind of a flow between the different scenes that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move we probably won't move very far away from improv. But let's talk about influences and comedy. And if you're going up to people in the streets and saying, "Hey, do you like comedy?" then obviously comedy is a important aspect to selling the show, and that's somewhat, I believe, the direction that you'll go with it. So, what do you guys find is funny? What's your comedy influences? What were your comedy heroes growing up, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think Sam and I both are big fans of slapstick and the old silent age of very physical, vaudevillian, circusy comedy. We've taken slapstick courses together, and we really try to bring out physicality as much as we can in our shows and scenes. So I would say that's probably one of my biggest influences, is just the kind of the intelligent stupidity of slapstick, where, you know, you're being asked to think about something intellectually while Charlie Chaplin's slapping somebody in the face. You know, it's making a broader point through stupid, lowbrow kind of movement. So having that combination of smart and dumb is very, very fun for us to play with.
Yeah. I can see the contrast of that. You know, that's a really interesting thought. How about yourself, Jaymie?
Oh, Sam, that was Jaymie.
Sorry.
All good.
Yep.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, I think slapstick is a good keystone for us. I also, we love playing with nonsensical absurdity, and I think, you know, some examples of that include like Monty Python, Peter Sellers and the Pink Panther kind of stuff. We also, I mean, we have like a whole bibliography of articles that we read and kind of exchange and sort of talk to each other about, that really go into sort of insane philosophical ideas or like arcane academic ideas. And I think we take a lot of influence in a weird way from not just comedy sources, but seeing the comic in other things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, philosophy, linguistics, things like that. Yeah.
Can you give a specific example from either of those? Philosophy or linguistics?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about language games, which is an idea that Ludwig Wittgenstein put forth. And my understanding is he actually was watching sort of the Austrian stage version of Commedia dell'arte when he kind of came up with this theory about how language games can kind of be a form of life in themselves. And so how we can use keywords, or, you know, we like had a scene yesterday where we only used pronouns, and so pronouns became kind of proper names. So, you know, there was some he and him, and oh, I hate him, or like, oh, what about he? You know, these kind of language games I think can be a lot of fun in a fireworky kind of sense.
Yeah, was that just something that evolved out the scene, or is that a game or something you've developed?
Yeah, it kind of just evolves. Sometimes it's, I mean, Sam, I would say, if I had to generalize, I would say Sam likes a little bit more form and structure when we do our improv, and I like a little bit more chaos and anarchy. So a lot of our shows are he and I battling it out to see, like, he'll try to create a form and I'll try to undercut it by using puns or wordplay to like push an abstract idea. So if the example is like, oh, I just got stung by a bee. Well, then maybe the response is, oh, well, we better get out of here before the C and D's show up. So it's like you use wordplay. Yeah, so you use wordplay to kind of make things mean something very abstract. And in that moment, it's very exciting because neither of us know where it's going to go. If I got stung by a bee and it's literally like an insect bee sting, then we can kind of start planning out where that scene would go. And that's the least satisfying and least interesting form of improv to me. I like to be totally surprised by Sam and totally surprised by myself when you play with these puns. So the he and him came out of kind of like a pun. I can't stand him. And then I think we just responded using him as his name. Mm-hmm. And then we had a he, and then we had a you, and then we had an I. And the scene just devolved into chaos because, like, we can barely keep track. You can barely use language to keep on top of what the game is because the language is kind of just a mess.
Yeah, I mean, we've really kind of been exploring Samuel Beckett as well, and what he does so well a lot of times is his games can kind of deconstruct in their own absurdity. And I think that's something that we really love to do, is to play something to the point that it just breaks down. And we can get very meta sometimes with those sorts of things.
Cool, interesting. So one of the things I pick up there is the idea that what you're essentially doing is, and this is Jaymie I'm speaking to, you're playing with people's expectations. So when people say I was stung by a bee, then everyone's go-to point in their head is that it means like a wasp, a hornet, a fly, an insect. And then when you say that we better run before the C's and D's get here, it's people then... I'm very interested in this idea of like playing with people's expectations, and I it's one of my go-to areas as well. But I also know that, like you say about chaos and anarchy, that sometimes you can almost derail things so that you had something that you could get through, and there was a clear vision and a clear path for where you can go with it. But then you can sometimes paint yourself into a corner. Now, a C and a D, I'm sure there's lots of ways you can play with this. But I'll try and give an example of one of my own. We had a scene where someone was they said they're going to hold up a shop, meaning like they were going to rob it. And we went with the idea that literally we were holding the ceiling up. And then we had 4 actors on stage, all with their arms in the air, holding the ceiling from coming down. And it was then the case of, where did we then take this? Because the idea that the robbery, which was what the suggestion from the audience was, had gone. That was clearly not what was meant anymore. We were now holding the ceiling up. And we found places to go because someone got trapped under rubble. But it is the question of, when you take something down a radically different path, can you paint yourself into a corner, and like how do you cope if you ever do?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love that. I wish I were watching more of that kind of improv, where hold up a shop literally means that you're holding up the ceiling of a shop. That's fucking great. And sometimes, you have to kind of pick your moments, because Sam and I were talking about this yesterday. We had a rehearsal before the show, and I have to tone down my curveballs that I throw at Sam. Maybe 1 out of every 5 pitches I'll throw his way. It's a baseball reference.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, good. I don't know who listens to this. Maybe 1 out of every 5 pitches can be a curveball, and the rest should just be normal pitches. That way, the scene can kind of have a little bit. The curveball can kind of land. If everything is a curveball, then it's like the
audience expects a curveball.
Exactly. So you kind of have to have a little bit of restraint and wait for your moment and not swing at every pitch. I don't even play baseball. I don't know why I keep doing that.
No, it's good.
No, I understand. Like don't worry.
So it can devolve into chaos, and I have certainly curveballed our scenes into chaos at times. But when we find that right balance between the chaos and the structure, the scenes really feel magical, because they have such a freshness to it. We're surprising the audience, we're surprising ourselves, and that's really the joy of improv for me, and I believe Sam as well, is that moment of surprise, not like, oh, great, we just executed a very good game of the scene. It's like, I had no idea that was where the scene was going, and those are the most fun moments in shows. So it's a big risk, but I think it's worth it, because the payoff can be great.
And how about you, Sam? How do you find yourself if you've been stung by a bee, but suddenly you find out that the alphabet is chasing you? What goes through your head in these moments?
I mean, I love when Jaymie surprises me in a delightful way, because it creates a very natural edit point too, I think, or it just sort of helps us find another direction. And I think these are ideas to be played with, and I think that sometimes I can play it too closely, and I'm only playing that one thing too much, if that makes sense. We've had to sort of train ourselves with physicality, that if we're doing something really big and physical, we really shouldn't be talking about doing the physical stuff. We should be talking about something else, or picking up one of the other sort of like verbal games that we've been doing. But that's been sort of a touchstone for us, is balancing the physical with the verbal. And so that even when one is kind of going off the rails, the other thing is kind of there supporting it. But sometimes it just becomes chaos, which can also be fun too, because we can kind of acknowledge that with the audience and sort of take those moments, collect ourselves back together, and get back into it.
Yeah, so is there sort of like a breaking the fourth wall, like a knowing look to the audience, so they're thinking, oh, where's this going? But they understand from you that you're thinking the same thing.
Yeah, we barely even have a fourth wall. If we do, it's a tiny gossamer of a scrim, and we mostly, even from the beginning, I don't know if you've watched like shows like Fleabag or House of Cards on Netflix or Amazon, but just even like a knowing look to the audience, like it's a very fun tool to have because it lets the audience in on the deeper meaning of what's going on, and it kind of connects you. So sometimes, I don't know, I think Sam and I have different opinions about the value of an audience. I mean, quite frankly, I don't care about an audience. I think if I am enjoying the scene and the show and I'm having a good time, that will translate to the audience, and the audience will see the joy that I'm genuinely having on stage. And even if this is not their taste of improv, they can enjoy my enjoyment vicariously. So it's, I honestly, I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I don't care about the audience really. If we have a good show, good. If they enjoy our show, good for them. They got lucky. But if they don't, as long as I enjoy the show, then I find that artistically gratifying.
I mean, one of the fun things is that I do disagree with Jaymie on this point. And I think it's really important to respect the audience and try to provide them with an enjoyable experience and to make them laugh. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to be funny when you're doing comedy. But I do also appreciate where he's coming from, which is you can't just be making jokes for them. You have to make jokes that make you laugh and give you some kind of spark of interest. And I think a lot of times we do find the spark, and it surprises us in an interesting way, and that, drives us, as opposed to, oh, okay, I justified this game. Now I got to find 2 more ways to play it. Wait, I got to back it off. And all right, we hit it again. Now we can edit into the next thing, which I think audiences could kind of see when the machine's working and the wheels are turning according to a clock, kind of a thing.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so the next question I've got is there something, what don't you find funny? And by this, I don't just mean like people dying, because that's not really funny, generally not. But what I mean is, like, is there a style of comedy? Is there a style of, I mean, like slapstick? Like if you've got Tom and Jerry, and clearly Tom gets killed lots of times and we can laugh at that, but we know it's not real. I mean, in real life, death isn't generally funny. But is there a style of humor, a style of comedy, something that doesn't work for you guys?
Personally, I don't like blue humor. Stuff that really goes to body functions quickly just doesn't do it for me personally. And so that's just something I stay away from. And it's one of the things I really appreciate playing with Jaymie, is that sometimes we do go to those places, but it happens very naturally. Maybe I say something that has a different meaning than what I meant to say. But I've certainly worked with other improvisers where it's a go-to tool, and I just don't enjoy that as much as some of the more verbal or physical stuff.
Yeah, for me, there's nothing. I don't know. I feel like there's value. There can be value in everything, so it's hard for me to say. And I've never really made a list of anything that I specifically do not like. But I also agree that I tend to avoid blue bodily function, sexual humor, only because there's no challenge there. It feels like a gimme, and I want to push myself and push the show to see if we can really come up with weird, intellectual, smart, witty, dumb physicality kind of things, and bringing in sex or any kind of bodily function feels too much like a gimme. It doesn't. Whenever I have done that in my improv career, it's never felt good. Even if the audience laughs, it doesn't feel good to me creatively. And I'm really in improv for myself.
Yeah, and I will say Jamie's sense of humor does go very dark, and there's a dangerous element to it sometimes. And I think, especially in Los Angeles 2019, there's a lot of things that people would say to stay away from that is like telling Jaymie,
it's catnip
go to
for
it.
Me.
Yeah,
it's catnip.
Don't tell him not to do something.
It's a challenge. It's a creative challenge, because it's like, I don't believe that there can be limits on artistic expression, and maybe the audience doesn't like it, but I feel like even if they don't like it, an audience can react any way they want to, but I'm really interested in the challenge of seeing, can I get the audience on my side even though I'm playing a pedophile, or get the audience to love my character, and then at the end of the show they realize, oh, I'm a terrible, pedophile or whatever. It's like you kind of play with the audience in that kind of way where they don't know how to feel about my character. That's really very fun territory. Or playing, I got a note in the workshop that Sam and I took together when we met, where I was playing a deaf person. And I didn't feel like deafness was the joke of the scene. It was just a character choice. And I was just trying okay, I've never seen anybody play a deaf person on stage. Why can't I try that to kind of maybe give them some representation? And the teacher immediately shut it down, probably within 15 seconds. And I was very offended by that because I was trying to do my best deaf character just to kind of explore what that would mean for that person in that scene. And everyone's so sensitive about it that they wouldn't even allow it to have a chance. And so I don't care for that kind of stuff. So it is dangerous, and people are often put off by it. But I think I don't care for boundaries really.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting thing you bring up there. And I know from personal experience that sometimes you can feel like you're on thin ice with an area that you have to be very careful on. But what it brings to my mind is, do you guys know the Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor film, See No Evil, Hear No Evil? Heard of it? Gene Wilder.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, though.
Just for any of the listeners who are listening to the show, if they don't know it, the idea is that in the film, Gene Wilder plays a character who is deaf. Richard Pryor plays a character who is blind. And between the two of them, they get wrongly accused of a crime and they have to get away from it. But just because it's quite an old film now, but something I read about it was that when they were going to make this film, there was lots of protests about how can these two people play these characters when they're not blind or deaf. And the way they overcame this is they said that we could get a blind actor and a deaf actor to play these parts, but it wouldn't get the same interest from the audience. So the people that they're representing wouldn't get that exposure. And when you watch the film, they arguably, and especially again in the climate of 2019, people would say, well, that's inappropriate. Is that belittling something here or there? But I'd say for the most part, they do a good job at always, even if they have some fun at times, they are the heroes of the piece. So it is just a difficult area when you've got disability, gender, race, sexuality, orientation, all these kind of things where if you don't actually fit the character you're playing, it can be, like say, thin ice, which makes it very difficult in improv when you're just a performer on stage and someone gives you something. How do you then just embrace it?
Yeah, and I also think that comedy very naturally becomes anti-institutional, and I think a byproduct of some of these concepts and opinions of how to approach these things becomes more institutional. There becomes more opportunity to subvert them and play with them, and that's something that Jaymie's very much a trickster character on the stage, and I think it's kind of fun to again play with audience expectations with that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, did you have something to add, Jaymie?
Yeah, I think in comedy in general, and I think that might be the clown aspect of our sense of play, is that we want to take a risk that the show will fail, the audience won't like it, and it's playing, disability or any kind of sensitive topic. There's that risk inherent in it, and I think as long as you're trying your best, I think it will work, or at least the audience can appreciate what you're trying to do, even if you don't execute it perfectly. I mean, I'm hoping one day to open up my own training center, and I would love to have a course where it's just how to play the underplayed character. So maybe we would actually have a deaf person come in and teach how to play deafness. What are the struggles that a deaf person encounters that people who can hear don't even know about because that's not their life? So you can play it a little bit more authentically. So if you ever are playing a deaf character on stage, you can do it with as much intelligence as possible. And I think because we're so afraid to even go there that it doesn't even get done. It doesn't even have a chance to. I don't know. I think it's disappointing, but I hope to change that someday. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, it's an interesting topic that's come up, and I don't know what the solution or the idea is myself, but the thought that comes to my mind is that I think a lot of people's go-to response to that is, well, they should just hire a deaf actor. But does that mean that a deaf character always has to be played by a deaf actor, or is that being too politically correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're two guys, but I think that having women on stage is important, and so I'm happy to take on roles that would be female, and we're a two-person team, so it's not like we would just add a woman to the team for that function. But talking to a female acting coach about how women maybe have a different movement typically, or how men stand versus how women stand, either through culturally or just sort of more like symbolic representations. I mean, these are important conversations that I think improvisers should be engaging in an appropriate way so that they can, really tap into everything the world has.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, this is getting more deep and serious than I expected, guys. We're doing well. We're going to change the world here. Yeah. Let's bring it on to something before we go too far down the rabbit hole, because I did promise you it was like lighthearted. Let's come again slightly away from improv technique and that kind of thing. Let's just ask a few rapid fire questions. So, favorite movie, guys?
For me, I've always liked Amelie.
Die Hard.
Oh, wow, I've never seen it. Amelie and Die Hard.
Okay, see, that's so... Use that as a metaphor for our show.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, wow. Do you know what? Like, again, we mentioned contrast earlier. I've never seen Amelie, Amelie, or however you pronounce it. It's the French film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
Is it? Okay. I think it came out in the late 90s or early noughties, and it was like the famous French film for about a decade, and at least in England, it may be different out there, but there's not many French language films that really hit it mainstream. But Die Hard, is that a Christmas film or not? Let's get that debate settled here.
Yeah, it's the greatest Christmas film. It takes place during Christmas. I don't understand the controversy.
Well, exactly. It ends. There's references to Christmas. It ends with the song. What more do you want?
I mean, you could say about the whole movie. What more could you want from Die Hard?
You can't see Sam, but he's being very facetious, and he has his "I'm going to convince you" of this non-idea look on his face.
I don't have to convince anyone everything. Like, ho, 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 now I have a machine gun. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next quick-fire question. What are you passionate about? And this it doesn't have to be an improv answer, but it can be if that's what you're passionate about.
Yeah, for me, I'm obsessed with free stuff. I'm a secret shopper, which means that I go to restaurants and rate the food and service in exchange for a free meal. If there's a new grand opening anywhere in Los Angeles, that would be
hang on. We're just getting the slight robotic sound effect. Can I just get that answer again? Generally, yeah. I don't do a lot of edits, but I think we're just getting slightly unlucky. So there's been about 4 or 5 times where I've missed the beginning of an answer, so I will edit this one out. So, yeah, what are you passionate about, please?
Great. So I'm passionate about free stuff. I'm obsessed with it, really. I'm a secret shopper, which means that I rate the meals and service of a restaurant in exchange for a free dinner. And if there's ever a grand opening of a store or restaurant in Los Angeles, I will be sitting out in front at 3 a.m. waiting for my free coffee for a year, which I did receive. So I love free stuff. I'll go out of my way, so much so that it's not even efficient anymore. I probably spent $50 in gas to get to a place for a free hamburger, but it was still joyous.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So there is something more satisfying about a free meal. Like the food tastes better.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the best free thing you've ever got?
Oh, the best free thing I ever got. Honestly, I don't even know.
Jaymie was looking around his apartment to try to figure out what free thing was here that he would say was the best.
Yeah.
What are some free things in the room?
Okay, that chair was free. I got the
you
TV
got a free chair.
I got a free, yeah.
It's really nice too. It's like leather.
These aren't. I just need to clarify. These aren't stolen because that doesn't count as free if they're stolen.
You have gotten to know me well enough that that's a reasonable question, but no, they're not stolen. They're just deals, and buy one get one kind of thing, or be the first on this date. Yeah. And if I ever see those, I put them on my calendar. Probably that chair is the thing in my eyesight. That's the nicest free thing. I've also won a trip to Hawaii.
Ooh,
which is lovely. I didn't end up going because the tickets expired before I realized it. So
that is sad. That is so upsetting.
It was very.
So you got 3 expired tickets.
Well, do you know what? Like, I would say a trip to Hawaii is definitely the best free thing. It shouldn't be discounted just from the fact that you forgot to actually go in time.
Well, you didn't get it.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, the joy of winning it was real. I almost cried because it was so exciting. So the joy was there. Just the experience and the fulfillment of it was not. But fair enough.
Photoshop yourself onto a background with palm trees. It's all good.
It's already done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, amazing. Okay, what are you passionate about, Sam?
I love martial arts, and especially practicing with nunchucks, and I will take the opportunity to denounce California's biased law against nunchuck ownership. It was recently struck down in New York as against American federal law, and I hope to someday challenge the nunchuck law here in California, because it came out of a misunderstanding of Bruce Lee films in the 1970s, and frankly, I think we're ready now to have nunchucks on the streets and parks of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because I'm not sure of your age, but you'll definitely be familiar with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Very familiar.
One thing I can say in the UK. Because of nunchucks specifically, when it was about 1990, because this is the era I grew up in, they actually renamed the show to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. They wouldn't call them ninjas, and I think who was it that had the nunchucks? Was it Raphael?
It was Michelangelo.
Oh yes, that's right. And they actually phased out his weapons in the cartoon.
It's very, very funny. I think I was about 5 when we went to England for a Christmas to see a family friend, and I remember discovering that they were the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I don't think I appreciated the nuance at 5 of why that change happened, but I remember being very confused that they weren't ninjas in England.
Yeah, it was a bizarre thing, and years later, obviously they've relaxed that, and even when the films came out at the cinema, they were Ninja Turtles. Then it was just the cartoon; they were Hero Turtles.
Oh, funny.
But to me, I have never got quite used to them being Ninja Turtles for the fact that I was used to them being Hero Turtles.
Well, they are heroes, so it works.
Well, they are. They're heroes in a half shell. So, okay, there. I said this could go in any direction.
That's right.
Okay. Let's move on to another quick fire question. So actually, maybe a sore spot because of the failed attempt to go at a trip to Hawaii. But I was going to ask, where is the most interesting place either you have ever been, or the most interesting place you have ever done improv? You can answer both questions.
Sam and I are looking at each other, thinking. Go for it, Sam.
I've been lucky to travel a lot. I lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years as a kid, and especially with everything that's going on over there right now with the protests.
You lived in Hong Kong?
Yes, I moved there 4 days before the British handover, and got to watch as the People's Liberation Army drove down to a fort past my house, which is really a fantastic experience when you're 12 and just sort of see what the world is. But because we were over there, I got to go to Vietnam as well, and that was a very interesting experience as an American. So I would sort of say like Southeast Asia in general, I think is a really interesting place. And I hear that there are a couple improv teams in Hong Kong. So if I ever go back, I would love to perform in Hong Kong sometime.
Wow. Do you know if they perform in English?
I believe one of the teams does. I'm not sure if they're Chinese language teams because I don't speak Chinese. So you can't Google in English to find the Chinese teams.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how about you, Jaymie?
Yeah, so I was a foreign exchange student in Germany in high school, so that was quite an experience. It was in a town called Lübeck, which is very, very North Germany, and it was certainly very interesting to be over there. They were at least they had we had a puppet theater that dated from, I think, like the Middle Ages. And so that was really cool. That was kind of my first introduction to puppetry, which is something that Sam and I haven't explored on stage that much, but I do have marionettes in my apartment, and I do love playing with them. I think maybe they could be our third teammate every once in a while. So that was very informative and kind of got me on like the theatrical path.
And you were going to an all-girls school.
Yeah, it was weird. It was the only one within biking distance. And I can't even remember what it was called, but it was all girls, and everybody in my class was a beautiful German girl. It was lovely. Yeah.
Actually, you were at an all-girls school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. It feels like there's a more of a story, but sure. Okay. We will move on from that to our next question, which is short. We haven't really discussed long versus short form, I suppose, because you say that you do different kinds of shows every night. But do you have a particular favorite short form game?
Favorite short form game. I either like New Choice, if you're familiar with New Choice.
Once again, you get New Choice.
Yeah, New
sorry,
Choice
I was just going to say, getting a slight robot sound.
Oh, sorry.
We're powering through, though. Powering through. So you like the game New Choice.
New Choice, or what I think would be particularly fun for a podcast is silent improv. A silent improv scene. I think that'd be really good.
Mm-hmm. I think we've had moments where we've been doing silent improv when the connection goes, but yeah. How about yourself, Sam?
I like freeze tag, and I don't think I should like freeze tag as much as I should, but one of the things that we've really been exploring with edits is how a physicality can be a pun and have two different meanings. And I think that's something that you do in freeze tag where, just because you were digging a hole a moment earlier when someone tags in and labels you as picking up that baguette, all of a sudden you've kind of edited into a different world just based on how someone's looking on stage. So I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And there may have been a connection issue. Did you say you do freeze tag? But how does that work as a Twoprov, or did I mishear that?
We sort of draw some inspiration from freeze tag, where we don't do the actual tag, but if we have done a scene for a little bit and sort of reached a peak, or even if one of us enters into a really interesting physical choice, the other one can just sort of pick up a different energy and label it as something new, and all of a sudden that becomes our edit. I've seen two-person teams that will do sweep edits, and we're just not a fan of that from sort of a theatrical perspective. So we've played a lot with sort of having these physical sort of swinging doors as edits, where just the way that you look right now it looks like you're holding something different, and we can kind of go into that scene.
Yeah, it's kind of like the pun where B is both an insect and a letter of the alphabet, but physically.
Yeah. Okay, guys, this is going to bring me on to something, and you feel free to say you don't wish to do this, because I'm going to throw you in the deep end by actually challenging you to a short-form game that we've been doing this series of the show. And it's what we call an extreme monologue. So it's played one person at a time, and there are two rules to this. The first rule is that you are not allowed, when you start your monologue, you are not allowed to repeat any words whatsoever. The second rule is that you're not allowed to hesitate, which means either an extended pause or repeating things like or one of these natural hesitation sounds that a person makes. And what we've been doing across this series is that we've been playing this game where someone will start a monologue, and as soon as they break one of these rules, the round is over. And we're seeing either on the show how long you can last, or across the entire series, like a leaderboard, which performer thrown in the deep end can actually go the longest. Are you up for having a go at this?
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Who would like to go first?
Not it.
I'm in.
Okay. Okay, you are Sam, you are going to go first. And what's interesting about having this entire team on the show today is we can all play together in that if, Sam, when you're performing, Jaymie, if you notice that Sam has broken either of the rules by having an extended pause, saying or what we call a hesitation, or if he repeats any word whatsoever, so if he repeats a small word like a or the or if, that counts. That's the end of the round. You can call freeze, and that's the end of the round. Okay?
Got it.
Okay, and I will also be able to call freeze if I hear it, but just because we have had some slight connection issues, I'm relying on you here to be the more eagle-eared of the two of us.
I can't wait. Good.
Okay, Jaymie, the second thing I'm going to say here for you is you can choose the subject which Sam will speak about.
Great. How about the band Guns N' Roses?
Okay, so just for clarity, you cannot repeat anything. You cannot repeat guns. You cannot repeat roses. Once you've said it once, that's all you get with any word whatsoever. Now, I'm going to start my timer in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Yesterday, I saw a man come out of an apartment carrying Guns N' Roses vinyl. Clearly, Craigslist behind this incident. I want us all to remember that buying things on...
repetition of Yesterday, I saw this. So that's... do you disagree? Do you agree?
Tough.
I think I got this correct, yeah? That is, according to my stopwatch, 17.01 seconds.
That's amazing.
Which is good. We've had some players... we did this actually where there was a lot of players live in a room, and 3 people in a row didn't last more than 4 or 5 seconds.
Oh,
and
wow.
we all fell into the same... Yeah, we all fell into the same trap of saying someone was going to the shop to buy something, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I digress. So, Sam, your time was 17.01 seconds. Jaymie, it's now your turn.
Great.
Okay, so, Sam, will you choose a subject for Jaymie?
Oh, pool cleaning techniques.
Pool cleaning techniques. Okay, and you will begin in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Pool cleaning techniques are important to know because one must always have clean and refreshing sources of water near them at all times. When I go to a place where H2O exists, many people are thinking just the same thing that Jaymie thinks. When people are going...
Is that a repetition of...
Yes!
That is a repetition of people. But you'll be pleased to hear, that is definitely the leader on the series thus far. We're about 6 episodes recorded, and that is 37.20 seconds. Now, and what I can say is you do have your... It is a competition between the two of you sat there, obviously, and Sam was listening keenly, so I'm sure Sam would have been eagle-eared here. I can say that I've had the slight connection issues, so there may be people listening at home that may have picked something up that I didn't, but for us listening live, for myself and Sam, that was 37.20 seconds, so that's, well done. That was definitely the top of the leaderboard today.
There was a 2 in the middle there. I was confused. I was like, did he say 2 already? I don't know.
No, it was the number 2.
We should go back to
number
the tape.
2, or it was the also 2.
We should probably go back.
That's really interesting. Within the rules of the game, it will be if you repeat. It will. Homophones don't really play into this. So if you say something, and it's got the same sound. So if you have 2, 2, and 2, I was going to this, to buy this for 2 people. If you hear the word 2, then we should have got you there. But never mind.
Well, the emails from the listeners.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so guys, we'll begin to wrap things up here, but just to end on, is there either A, anything you would like to ask me, or B, is there something you would have liked to have covered in the show that we haven't covered yet?
Interesting. Well, There's something I'd like to ask you. Sam and I are actually planning a little tour of Europe at the end of April and the beginning of May, and we'll be going to Poland, Germany, Belgium, and the UK to do some workshops. Oh, did you break through? Sam just pointed to his phone.
I gather you said that you're planning to come to the UK, Germany, and Belgium for workshops?
Yeah, we're going to be teaching some workshops and performing. We've been in contact with people. We would love to play with you or play with your team or share an hour. Or
Yeah. When are you coming over?
We'll be in the UK the end of May. I think May 6th through 10th.
So the beginning of May.
Is that what I said? Yeah, I'm sorry. Beginning of May.
Okay. Do you know what? So the beginning of May. Okay, we can discuss this all properly through emails and Facebook and contact through this later. But yeah, if we can make it happen, let's make something happen.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. We're currently ourselves, because we have live shows, which is the Extreme Improv comedy show. We're currently putting together our tour dates because we do improv all over, and currently, off the top of my head, we have a regular London slot, which is at the end of each month. Then, the beginning of May. So there's one of the big fringe festivals. Have you heard of the Edinburgh Fringe?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So it's similar to that. This isn't the Edinburgh Fringe because that's not until late July and August. But there is the Brighton Fringe, which is another of the bigger ones, and that is May. But I tell you what, if you're coming, then Brighton may be a good place to visit anyway whilst you're in the UK. But regardless, if we've got something going on, then we will connect on this. We'll try and make something happen because I think that would be very cool. You guys are in LA, we're here in the United Kingdom. Let's through the joy of podcasts bring something together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Awesome, brilliant, guys. So we will begin to, unless there was something else that we hadn't covered, perhaps.
I was just wondering your favorite place that you've been or performed improv.
Oh, good question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a very good question. I think my favorite place that I've performed improv. Okay, so it's going to sound a little bit cheesy, but it's probably my hometown, just because in my hometown, which is in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire here in the UK, we have there's a fantastic theatre called the Waterside Theatre, and it's there's a big group of theatres called the Ambassador Theatre Group, and it's a really lovely space, and they've got theatres all over the country, and it's when you turn up there, it's incredibly professional. We're able to put on a much bigger scale show in terms that we get more a bigger stage. We can have projections and lights and a bit more breathing room just to whatever we've had in our mind's eye for, wouldn't it be amazing if this could be the show? This is the furthest we've been able to push it in that space. But other than that, in terms of perhaps a slightly more interesting answer than just my hometown, I've been to the United States a few times to do improv in the last couple of years, and I love coming to the United States. And in fact, we went to California last year, and we did the San Francisco Improv Festival, which was very cool. That holds a special place in my memory, just because that was the first time I came and did improv in the United States, and so that was very cool for a lot of reasons. And just every time we've come to the United States, everyone in America has made us feel very welcome. So that is definitely up there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, if you ever come to LA, please let us know.
Yeah, please.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to be booking my flight tonight, guys. I'll turn up on your door tomorrow morning.
Great.
But great. So, guys, this has been great. And thank you for everyone. I will make sure I've done a couple of edits on this where we've had a couple of glitchy moments. But thank you for sticking with us, because I think we've still had a really good show with some really interesting topics come up. But guys, where can we find you? Where can anyone who's perhaps in the United Kingdom, who's going out to LA, or anyone who is in LA who wants to see your show? Or where can we find you on the internet, social media, that type of stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. Our team name is Folly, Folly, and I actually just recently discovered that there's a UK The Folly, which we would love to play with them sometime. But it's Folly on Facebook, and please like the page or send us a message, or my name is Jaymie Parkkinen. You can harass me on Facebook.
He's easier to find than Sam Miller.
I am the only Jaymie Parkkinen in the world.
It's very helpful.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's a unique name. And and yourself, Sam?
You can follow Folly Improv, and I am also on Twitter and all the other platforms. So if you can dig through some of the other Sam Millers, maybe you'll find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being on the show today, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this was a joy.
Yeah. So, just for anyone listening, this has been the Extreme Improv podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Alexa, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else that you find major podcast platforms out there. We have our YouTube channel. We're on Patreon, so please support us on there because there's lots of interesting exclusive stuff you get through that platform. Our website to find out all of our podcasts and live shows is www.extremeimprov.co.uk, and of course you can just search Extreme Improv on any of your favorite social media, if it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or any of that. I'm David Pustansky, and I'll just spell that for our listeners who may be interested some strange reason to look me up. That's Pustansky. So until next time, this is the Extreme Improv podcast. Thank you very much, and goodbye.